Welcome to the commentary booth where we watch and you guessed it, commentate on the week that was in movies and TV. I'm your host and play-by-play commentator Jamie Apps, and each week I'm joined by a rotating cast of colour commentators to help you find your next viewing treat. This week I'm joined by a teacher slash travel blogger who lists their favourite movie as Top Gun Maverick and favourite TV show as Band of Brothers. Welcome back to the show, the man I thought may have a heart attack last night, Buddy McClelland.
That was a long time coming, that win. Thanks for having me back.
Was it? And it couldn't have been like an easy win. They had to do it the hard way.
I'm not going to lie to you. I literally got up and ran around the house. Like, I was winning. I was like losing. For those who don't know, it's the St. George Illawarra Dragons rugby league side who have been the source of me being bullied and or workplace bullied for at least a decade. And literally every week I go to work and I get Monday morning, I just know I'm in for it. And so they've been on a 6-game losing streak. They fired their coach. But I don't know what it is with sports for some reason. As soon as you fire your coach, you seem to win the next week. I'm not confident about the week following, but in sports, it just seems you fire a coach and you win no matter what.
Except if you're Chelsea, and then it doesn't work. It took like 2 weeks before we won, and then we went back to being shit, so...
Yeah, get what you get. I don't think we've beaten the Roosters, that said, in regular season since 2010.
Jesus. So
it's been 13 years. We beat them on Anzac Day a couple of times, but never in the regular season.
It was even more like unexpected.
Yeah, I think, and to win in the last 3 seconds, it was nice. It was a good change. I've been to a few games. I'm a member for the Dragons. I try to be proud, but it's just sad at this point. So hopefully they keep going.
Come out of the closet as a Dragons fan now.
I'm well out of the closet, mate.
Loud and proud.
Loud and proud.
Alright, so off the weird Dragons. This week we're reviewing the touching and heartfelt documentary Still, a Michael J. Fox movie. This brand new documentary chronicles the life and story of Michael J. Fox from all the way back to his early childhood, his early years in Hollywood, and then finally his struggle with Parkinson's disease, both his diagnosis and life since then. Before we dive into it fully, what did you think of this one?
I feel like every time I come on here, I sing the praises of AppleTV, and this week is absolutely no different. I think it was awesome, like the way that they shot it, and they chose to let him tell his own story, and have it sort of done with, I guess, like a body double combined with scenes from his films and things. It was super uplifting, and I thought it was awesome. I really, really liked it. Highly recommend.
Body double?
Was it a body double? I feel like they had like behind him. Like when he was laying in bed and stuff. It wasn't.
Oh, yeah, maybe. I know. I love the way they like blended his commentary about his story with like scenes from the movies and TV shows that kind of fit the story without like being like exact replicas of those stories. And it's like, this is weird and like kind of prophetic with all the stuff he was doing, like crazy.
Yeah, definitely. I just think like Michael J. Fox overall as a person, the way he can approach things, which I think is I don't know, you'd be able to speak to it maybe a bit more, but I think for people with disabilities, a lot of the time, they're really, really strong at facing those disabilities and have a way of using humour and finding happiness in dark situations a lot of the time. And I think he's absolutely brilliant at that. And the way he does that the entire way through, comes at things with humour. And even when it's really hard for him to get out, he seems to have these brilliant one-liners. Like, I think there was a really good one that I remember where he was walking on the street with his physiotherapist,
Yep.
It must have been. And he's walking down the street, and he obviously really struggles to walk, which I think is something that's pretty common with people in late-stage Parkinson's, that he gets stuck and he freezes, or he can't get his left foot to work how he wants. And he falls over face first onto the concrete in the middle of like the New York street. But the first thing he does, doesn't get cranky, doesn't get sad, just bounces up, looks at the lady that was next to him and says, "Wow, you knocked me off my feet."
I laughed hard at that one. I was like, that's great.
It's unbelievable, like, to be like that and to be so strong in such a hard situation. I think it's just an absolute credit to who he is as a person.
And yeah, like you mentioned, I think with disabilities or chronic illness and stuff, like I guess you can't change it. Is the way I look at it. Like, there's nothing I can do about it. So why beat yourself up and drag yourself into like dark places? Like, you might as well find a way to laugh at it and enjoy the good times, I guess, which is kind of what he does. Like, he somehow remains super upbeat and, like we said, he's really self-deprecating with. Uh, he calls himself a cockroach because you can't kill a cockroach. Gravity is real even when you're falling from my height. I was like, and that was after he like had just fallen and absolutely smashed his face on a table that needed surgery to repair. It's like,
Yeah, he had some pretty serious injuries going
yeah,
in there,
like,
didn't he?
it's crazy to see like the stuff that he's been through since then that like doesn't get reported. Like, it's just his life, so it's not really news. It's kind of like, oh yeah, okay, he fell over and smashed his face and had to have really in-depth surgery on his face.
Yeah, I think it's really highlighting. It's not my story, obviously, to tell, but there's someone close in my family that does have Parkinson's and was diagnosed not as early as Michael, but fairly early in an adult life to be diagnosed with Parkinson's. And I think the way that they best described to me how it felt at that stage, because everyone I think assumes that Parkinson's is just people tremoring all the time and just kind of being shaky, when it's really a lot more neurological. I think that the way it was described to me was, if you imagine having a button-up shirt that's undone and you're trying to put that shirt on, but now your hands are in oven mitts.
Okay.
You know what you want your fingers to do. You can see the buttons. You can see your hands, but you just can't get them to work. And just that level of frustration, and it just knowing that it's not going to get any better, I think it would be really difficult. But yeah, it must just be incredibly frustrating.
Yeah, like, and yeah, he talks about when he has to take his medication. He's like, he talks about it as if it's like it's just waiting for the bus, and then once it kicks in, he's like, okay, yeah, I'm on the bus now. Like, I'm good and I can control it. And you see him like he's walking, and there's moments where he's walking perfectly fine, and then all of a sudden, yeah, one of his legs just goes, nope, not working anymore, and it just throws him way off. Or if he gets like too excited, I think it kind of triggers it even more.
Yeah, I think it must be hard to. That's the other thing I've noticed is the mix with the medication, like you were saying, that he's obviously waiting for the bus for his serotonin to come back in. It must be incredibly hard on his mood, which I think is something that he keeps pretty hidden if he's not feeling happy or sad, that he's just kind of waiting for his bus to come along, when really what he's trying to say is, I'm not feeling very happy right now.
I'm trying to think what else. Oh yeah, and like he's still like incredibly charming and charismatic and yeah, funny. And I think one of the other moments that stood out to me was when the physiotherapist asked how his wife Tracy was, and his answer was just, she's married to me still.
Yeah, I think she is really like, and again, shout out to all of the disability carers and people that are close to people with disabilities out there that I think a lot of the time can be some pretty unsung heroes. But she's brilliant. Like the way that she goes through things with him, and I think for her, she can see a little bit when you look at her that she can see he uses his comedic skills as a way of covering up how hard things are sometimes
100%.
as well. But she sees through it and really kind of is by his side for everything and hasn't shied away. I think is it like 35 years married or something they've been. But she's been there for every step of the way and just is an absolute saint in my eyes.
And like the moment where she's trying to reply to a text for him, and he's just like, he takes it to like the ultimate extreme of, instead of being like, oh yeah, I'm sorry I didn't get back to you, it's like, oh yeah, I'm sorry I didn't get back to you, the beach is waiting for you. And she's just like, what are you talking, like what? Like, it's not just a physical thing for him, like sometimes his brain just kind of gets off track as well, like he can't control even his thought processes at times.
Yeah, and again, I think that's pretty common. Like the one thing I didn't notice in it, and that has been something that's in my experience of people with Parkinson's has been something that's happened. But did he mention anything about there's things like deep brain stimulation where they can do surgeries and things like that? But I didn't see them make any mention of it.
No.
And from what I'd heard, it was something that he wasn't keen on doing. But basically, there is an option for treatment where they can put rods sort of into your brain and then have them connected through to a little box that electrically stimulates different parts of your brain to try and counteract things. And the way it was described to me again was that because your brain is actually flipped compared to where it's connected, that sometimes if your right side is having issues, and I think in his case, going back to Michael J. Fox, was that he had his left hand was the big problem a lot of the time, which was wild when you saw it played back on Sin City and everything where he was hiding it. But basically what they do is they stimulate the right side of your brain with electricity, and that can chill out the left side of your body, and vice versa. But yeah, I know that was something that's it's a scary technology to have to go through, and it's something that stood out to me that he didn't really make mention of having opted for that treatment.
Yeah, I guess that's a terrifying thing to think about. Like, yeah, put these electrodes in my brain, like that. I'd be scared of that, like just changing every single thing about me.
Yeah, and you know what? Like coming to that, the stories that I've heard is that some people that were completely like me, like the kids at work laugh at me when I try and draw pictures on a board. Like I
no artistic talent.
Let's do comic strips or something, and it's like I try and draw a eagle, and it turns out to be like a face melted budgie or something. But there's people like me that go in there with absolutely no artistic talent that have that done and come out and paint these just like insane, like mandala, whatever they are, the crazy artworks that just stimulate something in their brain that wasn't there before. Like it does happen, and I guess in these cases it happens in a positive sense, but again, I think people would be a bit reluctant to show you what would happen potentially in a negative sense.
And I guess because he has like so much creativity in him already, like that was probably a big thing for him too, where he didn't want to lose that. And even when he's talking about the medication he takes, he's talking about, like he would specifically like hold back on taking his medication, or he'd take like a little bit extra at certain times so that he was peaking right when he needed to for scenes and parts. That's crazy.
Yeah. I can't imagine. The bit that really showed me the most was that he felt that he had to hide it. Like, it was such a meteoric rise for him to be, like, good on him. Go Short Kings. I'm real proud of short men. Which actually, like, I actually own his book, Always Looking Up.
Oh, yep.
It's the biography that he brought out before. Really good book as well.
I think I've got that book somewhere too.
It's great. It's definitely worth the read. But just being short and utilising that as getting, like, what was he, 16, playing 12-year-old characters, but then turning that into being Marty McFly and being on Family Ties, whatever it was, like Alex P. Keaton. It's just insane. Like, it's crazy the rise that he had and how famous he was so quick after being, like, I never really took into account. And again, it was really great to see it not just told, but recreated. Him in his one-bedroom apartment that had one sink where he washed the dishes in the bathroom sink where he poos.
Yeah, he had one sink in the entire apartment.
To go from that to a DeLorean is just wild.
And yeah, like, before he got that Family Ties role, he was literally down to, like, the last bit of money he had to take the bus to that audition, and was like, well, if I don't get this role, that's it. I'm done. Acting has not worked. And then he got a 7-figure role.
Through that. And then, to go through that, I think, and be like, what was he, like, pretty much the most famous actor on the planet for a while there. And then to have to go so quickly from struggling to ultra famous, and then really is it late 20s, I think they said, for his diagnosis. Like, to go so quickly on that roller coaster and then not have it break you is just incredible. But yeah, I think the crazy part was having all those shots and watching his hand and watching him. He said he would tap things and he'd get a pencil and he'd pick things up just to keep that hand moving so that way people wouldn't notice. And to be able to see all those back and then have that kind of insight, I think was really interesting.
that was crazy. Like, watching those shows, nobody knew. Like, nobody picked up on it. But now you look back and you're like, yeah, it's obvious that he's struggling in moments there, but at the time, it was like, oh, whatever. That's just what he's done for this particular character in terms of how this character is.
Yeah, and then to continue on from that, like having to come out and tell everybody, because I mean, Parkinson's for anyone is a really terrifying diagnosis. But Parkinson's for an actor, I think, where you rely on control of your body and your expressions and everything like that, is yeah, it's really really rough for him. But then I'm not sure. Do you know how long he continued on after that? I feel like Spin City was on for quite
Yes.
a while post
Yeah, Spin
announcement.
City was, well, yeah, a fair while. And that was like his way of coming back after dealing with obviously the diagnosis, the mental battles that had, which then led to like alcoholism. And then this was like, right, if I'm going to get past all of this shit, I need to go back to the thing I love. And Spin City was that thing, but obviously the stress of doing a weekly show with a live studio audience kind of ramped up the symptoms as well. And yeah, would have been super tough. Like, even when he's talking about taking his medication, he talked about like not necessarily taking the medication to hide or to control the symptoms or reduce his physical pain. He was taking the medication to hide the symptoms from everyone else. It's like, that is crazy.
And sad, like it's sad that people would have had to feel like that at the time. Like, and I think the good part about Michael J. Fox, and to think of even like you're saying the alcoholism and stuff, but for the rise he had and the run that he had, I think he would have had any excuse to be one of those celebrities that you heard just like Macaulay Culkin and just kind of went off the rails properly. But I mean, the worst drama that you hear about the bloke is that he drank too much for a while when life got hard, and now he doesn't drink anymore.
Yeah, like pretty
He's
normal
just held it
issues.
together so well. No, he's just. I think he's treated like. I don't know. At least in my house, he's treated like a sweetheart. I guess like everyone's. I still see him a bit like Marty McFly, and you want to love him like Marty McFly, and just a kind-hearted, upbeat person, but just a person that's kind-hearted, upbeat, and also has
Yep.
Parkinson's.
And yeah, like his whole mantra of and thought process at the time of, if people don't know I have it, then I don't have it. It's like I related to that comment. I was like, yeah, I feel like that with CF. Like, I don't go out and like broadcast it to the world, apart from the book I just wrote. But that's like,
Yeah. Congratulations, by the way. It looks really good.
it's one of those things. It's like, yeah, I'll put it out there. Like, but I'm not like, that's not a badge that I'm walking around with every day. Like, I'd prefer people to just look at me as me, and that's kind of what he did.
I think 100%. And I think, like that's your story to tell, or to not tell, or to choose exactly what you want to do with it. Whether it's a book, which like you've done in a different way, and he's done in his biography, or whether that's a documentary. I think it's your thing, and if that makes your story, tell it how you want to.
And I'm glad that Hollywood didn't then try and like typecast him into like disabled roles or the sick guy and stuff like that. Like, maybe they did and he just refused them all, but like, I am glad that he hasn't gone down that path. Like, I'm just a dude, and this is just life.
Well, I think he'd be pretty acutely aware, and he seems to be at the end of the film, that he is such an advocate for people with disabilities or people with Parkinson's, particularly. And I think if you put him in those roles, it undermines the seriousness of what he's going through, and then that would undermine his advocacy for better care for people with those sorts of disabilities. And I think the amount of money these guys, I remember, not related, they didn't talk about it in this film, but I remember that they had pairs of Nike McFly's. So the shoes, remember the shoes that would like light up and self-lace that we were supposed to have now, and hoverboards.
Yeah, where's my hoverboard?
I know, where's my McFly's? I think I used to want a hoverboard, but now I think I want the McFly's. But he auctioned off a bunch of those and just made some ridiculous money for Parkinson's charities. So that, and having his platform to speak from, I think is something he does really well. So you wouldn't want him to be taking roles where he's just a character with a disability and completely ruining the good work he does outside of acting.
And even like the way it ended, I was kind of sad as well, where it kind of seems like he does feel a bit of a burden on having the responsibility of being Michael J. Fox and being that inspiration and role model to others, like it does seem like that weighs on him quite a bit as well.
Yeah, I mean, I think it would have to. It's something that he's very good at. Do you know what? He's a professional actor. At one stage, he was the number one professional actor. I guess that's the question you got to ask when you watch this: is how much is he acting about his everyday life, and how hard it actually is for him. And I think the way he presents himself and the way that Apple presented it is lighthearted and uplifting. It has its heavy moments, but I think the way, like we said, he uses his comedy to get through those moments is really there. But I don't think you can understate, like you're saying, just how hard it would be. But the thing I took from the end, I think, with the scene, especially where they're at the beach, was just how important and how lucky he is just to have his everyday family around him. I think in those situations, you could be Michael J. Fox, you could be yourself, you could be anyone that has something hard happening for them, and it's not important to be famous, it's not important to be rich, it's important to have a loving, caring support network that love you for you. And I think he's really blessed that he has that.
And I think those moments with his family are the ones that like really highlight just how difficult his life can be at times as well. Like, I think it's his son that says, like, when we tell you to be careful or take it slow, we're not saying it because we are pretty sure you're going to fall over. Like, we're just saying it because you care. We care about you. And he's like, I'm fine. Like, no, like, you fall over all the time. Like, just, you don't need to run around and act like a regular person. Like, you need to just slow everything down because that's what your body is telling you to do. But because of the way he is inside, he's like, no, I'm still fine. I can move around and do whatever. Not quite.
Yeah, it must be so frustrating, like incredibly frustrating, and for them incredibly scary. Like those injuries, they're the things you don't see. You know, like it was to show. I think it delayed them like a month in the filming by the look of it. It looked like they were filming in his lounge room, and they came back, and you think it's the exact same day in the exact same lounge room, except now he's had a shattered eye socket because he fell and hit himself on something, and then he broke an arm. Like, they're proper
Yeah,
injuries.
and like the older you get, those are more serious and life-threatening injuries too. Like broken bones as you get older are bad business.
Yeah, definitely.
So yeah, like it gave us lots of insight into him as a person, but what I found also interesting was the amount of insight this documentary gave into like the movie business and Hollywood business as well. Like we spoke about him being on his last couple of dollars and getting that 7-figure salary, and then the fact that Family Ties wasn't even supposed to center around his character, but because he was so good, they quickly twisted everything to make him the main focus of the show, which was pretty cool.
Yeah, and I think just to see how he could go, like you said, from 0 to 100, like just that story of never giving up, even if it's in that show business context, was it's pretty insane.
And how hard he worked too, like Family Ties and Back to the Future, filming those simultaneously, one in the day, one in the night, for 3.5 months. Like that is nuts.
Yeah, and to think at the start he only got into acting because that's where all the girls were, and he got to, was it Rumpelstiltskin? He got to play.
Yep. Yeah, he did join the drama club because that's where all the girls were. Like, okay, well done.
It worked.
And then we also saw the crazy figures that Back to the Future made in terms of money as well. They showed a newspaper listing after 2 weeks at the box office. Back to the Future had made $32.6 million. And then a later one, 8 weeks later, it was up to $119.8 million. And then the next like two on the list were Mad Max Beyond Thunderdome after a week had made $10 million. And Cocoon after 4 weeks had made 39.7. So,
was there not a stage in there as well? Tell me if I'm wrong, but where he made, was it Teen Wolf?
Mm-hmm.
And I swear there was a stage where he was 1 and 2 in both movies. Like, I don't think I've ever seen anybody do that. both
Yeah,
at the
I'm trying
same
to think.
time.
Maybe like a Toby Maguire. Not a yeah, Toby Maguire. Maybe on something.
Yeah, see, I've never actually seen Teen Wolf. I actually really want to go back and like watch it now. I've never
It
seen
does
it. It
look a
looks
bit
fun.
ridiculous, but I guess that's the cool thing with these things. Like
Yeah.
they introduce you to stuff that you didn't really watch. Like I'm sure I watched like episodes of Spin City in like the 90s, but I never watched like the show fully. But I kind of want to watch it just to see like his progression through it and like to still be able to act at such a high level while also trying to hide everything and dealing with everything that's going on in his personal life.
I think it seems to show like when people are given the opportunity, on like the cast and the crew on Spin City probably would have been to be aware of how to act around people and to give him the time and the space he needs. I don't think they would have been blind to knowing what a type of person and what type of actor they had in Michael J. Fox on Spin City. So I think they would have been quite happy to give him whatever he needed, and that's the way it seems to have run. I do. It's the same thing for me. That I remember it being like on late night TV really randomly, and I watched like scattered episodes of it.
And he even talks about like after Family Ties and the incredible success of the two Back to the Future movies, like becoming a bit of a diva as well, like going into Family Ties tapings and being like, can I change this or do this? And the director's being like, no, it's fine.
What he was saying that he was Alex P. Keaton through the day, and then someone would come and pick him up, drive him out to some set. He'd have to turn into Marty McFly, act all night, go home, sleep for an hour, and then go back, start again, do it all the next day. And I never would have picked that on the Back to the Future movies. I haven't watched like much Family Ties other than like silly little clips here and there of him particularly. But I never would have picked up on Back to the Future that he was running off of like an
a bunch
hour
of
sleep.
caffeine.
Yeah.
I don't know how you do that. Like I would have been dead after about a week. Being like, can I just have a day off to sleep?
Yeah. Take me back 8 hours in the DeLorean and I'll start again when I wake up.
So yeah, like it's hard to like talk about it without like just ruining everything. But it's 100% you need to just watch this movie. Like the way they've produced it is just nuts. Like the amount of work that would have gone into digging through all of those archives to find little short clips of him like walking through a door or just sayings in moments where it fits perfectly with the story that he's telling. Like I can't imagine the amount of hours in the editing bay that the directors and producers all went through to do this.
Yeah, I don't think I've ever seen a documentary that's shot like that. Like it's him telling his story through clips of him previously combined with himself speaking currently, combined with scenes that they've obviously shot. But the way that they put all that together, it just made it different, but at the same time a little bit familiar. And just, yeah, like I said, I think Apple TV, again, have just got that production value and they use it so well and tell a story that is really important and really uplifting at the same time. So, yeah, it was really,
I think
really
it
well
added
done.
like a heart and soul to the movie. Like by having those archival things, it wasn't just other people telling his story and then him like interjecting with comments. It was him telling the story, and we heard the director ask a few questions, but he mainly stayed out of it. So yeah, it was just Michael and clips of Michael fused together. So yeah, like it felt familiar, but it also felt fresh and insightful as well.
Yeah.
In terms of a rating for Michael J. or still a Michael J. Fox movie, where would you fall on the scale for this one?
Look, I'm going to give it a full 5 for me. Like, I highly recommend
Same.
it. Obviously, for me, again, it hits a little bit closer to home with my personal experiences. Um, but I think it's something that everyone should get out there and watch, particularly if you're a Back to the Future fan or just a Michael J. Fox fan in general. But I think everyone would enjoy this.
Yeah, I think even if you don't have a disability connection, you don't even have much of a connection to Michael J. Fox as a person. I think it's just a really touching human story, and yeah, like it's a great educational story on Parkinson's and dealing with disabilities. Alrighty. Thank you everyone for listening to the commentary booth. If you enjoyed the show, please remember to rate, review, and subscribe on podcast services and on YouTube. You can follow me on social media at JammyUpsMedia and at Pario Magazine. And you can follow Buddy on Instagram.
Yep.
I can't remember what it is because I've just realised I've got the wrong details there. What's your Instagram, buddy?
A_BC on Instagram, sorry. I can't remember my own details now.
A_B...
SEE. There we go. We got there.
That's it. Good. Professional podcasting.
Professional, hey.
Alrighty. Thanks, buddy, for jumping on, and enjoy the rest of your weekend.
No worries. Good luck with the book sales.
The Commentary Booth is a fan-funded production of Jamie Apps Media. You can support the podcast alongside our magazine, Pario Magazine, on Patreon at patreon.com/Jamie Apps Media. The following people supported at the publisher level or higher, and you cannot fathom how incredibly appreciative we are for their support.